In the early 2000s, while on tour with the Circus Guy musical Goodwill Ambassador program, sponsored by the US Embassy in the Middle East, I wrote an environmental song that we performed in Kuwait at the IMAX Theater for school kids, and on a solar-powered, wind-powered stage we built at the Wadi Environmental Science Center in Cairo, Egypt. The song lyrics went like this.
The total volume of water on Earth is about 1.4 billion cubic kilometers, but only 41 million of this is fresh water that we can drink and use. We must protect this precious heritage. We must recycle it, we must purify it, and make it good to drink again as Allah intended. We are the stewards of the earth and the water. There's lots of talk about disasters that are coming down the pike. We're told we'll soon run out of water and we'll one day have to fight. Live and let die. But water's not like oil, it never disappears. It's so abundant, there's no need for all these fears. Water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. Purifying water, friends, is easier than you think. Making new fresh water is as simple as can be. Distillation and osmosis and some fun technology, you'll see. Because we're living on a water planet, blue and green on top of granite. My, you may call this planet Earth, but water is our place of birth. A hyper-sea of living liquid life. We're alive. Ashemai. 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 Khilafah means earth stewardship, to keep our waste and filth away from my. Amana is the trust Allah bestowed on all of us to learn and try. Ikra, try to do right. We must learn from Allah's plan. The balance of Mizan. Learn the hydrologic cycle as water goes through plants to man. Waste don't belong in water, not the toilet or the sink. Filth must be composted, water must be fit to drink. Our rivers can't be sewers, not for home or industry. We can keep our water pure and clear for all eternity. You'll see. Because we're living on a water planet, blue and green on top of granite. My, you may call this planet Earth, but water is our place of birth. A hyper-sea of living liquid life. We're alive. Ashemai. 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 There are living machines that can make water clean again. Plants and algae, it seems like to play on our team. Cleaning our waste, purifying our streams. Wind and sunlight can power desalinization. Making salt water, fresh water through distillation.
We sang this song all over the Middle East in these water-stressed areas using STEAM education, science, technology, engineering, art, math, and music, poetry, rhymes, rhythms, as ways of engaging the public in this debate about water. So, water. It's supposed to be the new oil, a limited resource that becomes increasingly scarce as development proceeds, inevitably leading to conflict, if not outright war. Water wars, coming soon to a theater near you, or to a community near you, starting with the Middle East, where we already have plunged people into wars for oil. But what is more scarce in the desert and other arid regions than water? So our psyche is prepared to accept this narrative. Makes sense to me, we fought those people over the limited amounts of oil that were in the desert, and humans had lived without oil for 99% of human existence and created civilizations without oil for 10,000 years. Seems reasonable we would then fight over something nobody can do without, doesn't it? And yet, analysis of both current events and history has shown that water scarcity has as often been the trigger for transboundary cooperation as it has conflict. And there is very little evidence that human beings have been unable to find ways to share water or to find ways to ensure its supply and purification. The fact of the matter is, as the song I wrote describes, we live on a water planet, and of all the resources we have, water is the one in the least danger of running out, at least until the sun expands in 1 billion years and boils it off the earth. The water cycle has been operating for billions of years, and one of the triumphs of evolution has been, as Lynn Margulis, the biologist, described it, to take water out of the oceans and bring it onto land, not just as a physical process of evaporation and rainfall, creating mountain streams, rivers, and lakes, but as a biological process, creating what she calls the hypersea, a living matrix of water moving about the surface of the earth in the water bags we call organisms. Think of every tree, every blade of grass, every elephant, and every ant, and every person as a sack of water, or as trillions of tiny sacks of water called cells, connected via watery bloodstreams that flow across the landscape with the movements of the organisms themselves. That is the concept of the hypersea. Life evolved in the water and then took in the water into the embodiments we call organisms and moved the water onto the land. Soil, too, is water. Without water, it would just be dirt. And it would be inert. Soil is a hyperorganism, a distributed organism made up of distributed water. If it isn't moist, it isn't soil. So when Lynn Margulis, who also came up with the famous endosymbiotic theory, called terrestrial life a hypersea, she wasn't kidding. The soil was the sea on land, sprouting fruiting bodies in the form of plants that could send information to other locations to turn dirt into soil, and creating detachable mobile water bags called animals who could carry water within them that could be released through peeing and pooing to build more hypersea. Oh, and sweating too. We critters can be looked on as the way that the sea conquered the land. Water's vitally important. We know that because we are water. But is it something to fight over? Is water something that we have to fight over? So the thing about water is that it's fungible, meaning it can take many forms, and it has enormous liquidity. It is, after all, liquid. It can be transformed in so many ways through its 3 primary phases, solid, liquid, and gas, and through its solvent properties, dissolving and transporting salts and other minerals and materials that can be nutrients or building blocks, and its transport properties as an agent of carriage, moving not just materials but objects large enough through its remarkable buoyancy properties that it could span and spawn a world system of commerce. It is also a carrier of information, chemical and acoustic, and a carrier of energy. So water is amazing stuff, and the reason we don't have to fight over it is because it can be so easily transformed from dirty to clean, from contaminated to pure. In this module, we show you how.